All right, everybody, it's Abby with Creative at Home. Thanks for joining me today for another painting tutorial. Today we're going to paint a holiday welcome painting, which is a really great, fun painting for your home decor. And here is the example of it. Run that through the piece. We're going to be painting it on a much smaller canvas, but if you purchase one of my kits or are working with me on a regular basis, this is the typical 11 by 14 canvas. For our purposes today, we're going to be doing this on a much smaller canvas for time's sake. Feel free to pause, rewind, do all kinds of things with this video for whatever you need with your activities. So from a supply standpoint, I have a variety of brushes, flat, large, small, and then a couple of detail brushes. I have my water cup, my paper towel, and my palette of paints. So on this one, we're going to need red, black, green, white, blue, purple, and then I'm using metallics for this one. I have some gold metallic and silver metallic. If you don't have that, you can substitute just a flat gray for the silver and then a lighter yellow color, so a little bit of yellow and white for the gold. So that's our supplies. We are going to go ahead and start mixing some colors to give this a start here. And we want to lighten up our blue paint, so I'm going to cut over about half white and half blue and just start mixing that together to give me a lighter blue color. And I'm going to do the same with my purple, but I'm going to use, purple's not going to be half and half. It's going to be more like 3/4 purple and 1/4 white. So we'll go ahead and mix that up. All right, so we're just gonna go ahead and get those colors mixed up. And keep going with our, let's get a little bit more white here. Into my purple, I want it to be lighter than that. So once I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and clean off my spatula and then get started on painting. Okay, we have some other colors to mix, but we'll mix them as we go through. So I'm gonna just start by kind of wetting down my canvas just a little bit here. I want this background to be very, very light and kind of look a little bit watercolorish, at least the background. So what I'm going to do is grab some of my pale blue, and then I'm going to use that with my widest flat brush that I have, and I'm just going to start by painting some X's here. Okay, and you can see by putting the water on the canvas already, it's going to help it to spread and be very thin. And then I'm going to grab some of the purple and paint X's in a different spot. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just keep painting this, and it's a really pretty combo. And if you want it to be even lighter, you can just go over it with some white. So you can just streak through some of these different colors until the background is finished. We're just going to go on the diagonal like that, and then get this really pretty background. You might think, huh, it's not very Christmassy, but it is. It'll be nice. So we're gonna let that kind of set up, and then we're gonna paint some circles. So you can use your darker blue here, and I'm just gonna run my brush around in a circle on top of that background. And so we're just going to go through this canvas and paint different color circles. And you can see it here in the background, how we have some that are lighter than the background, some that are purple, some that are darker blue. Just adds a really nice, pretty background. And then some even go off the edge of the canvas. So we'll pick up some purple and add one over here, and I'm just twirling my brush in a circle. And if you want to, you can grab a piece of each color on the brush and kind of just see what that gets you. Each one is going to be a little bit different, and you can make them different sizes. And if you want to add a darker center, you can just throw some darker blue in there. Just kind of mix it up. So, okay. And then you can go lighter just by adding some white. Okay. And we're just going to make these. Here's a really purple one. Just going to make these all over the canvas. This one's going to go off the side here. Here we go. And then you can put some purple in the center. All right. And then just keep going. Make that one a little smaller. You can make it another one go off the edge here. Okay. So I think I'm pretty happy with that background. And at this point, we're going to want to just kind of let it dry. You can stop and pause the video. Let it just set up. I like to use a blow dryer if you're having an event where you need to, you want to just keep moving. You can use a blow dryer real quick and just go from there. So we'll go ahead and let that set up just for a minute. You know, this is a great time to refresh your drink, get some more snacks, spend time with your family. You know, we don't want to rush this process too much. So just let it dry. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and for our purposes here, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. We'll be able to make it work here. But we're going to start with this pole. And we want the black pole to come up. And I'm using a thinner flat brush here. And it's going to kind of taper as you go up. So it'll get thicker at the bottom and then taper up like that. So there's our pole. All right, and I like to just kind of, we'll paint it and then can always come back over it with another layer. But it also will get some of these circles on the top. So it's going to get a bigger circle on the top here. And then a smaller one, kind of like a snowman. And then a smaller one on top of there. So get it. All right. And if you want it to go all the way up to the top, you can make it have this teeny tiny one up there. Okay. So there is our pole. And we're gonna move on to the next step. So we are going to then paint our sign. So this has a rectangular sign and it is about halfway up, but just above halfway here. So I would say that the bottom of the sign is going to start about at the halfway mark, okay? And it does not connect to the pole. It's off the pole just slightly. So I'm gonna get my white paint, and this white sign may take a couple of times. So I'm not gonna touch it to it, but I'm just gonna start by doing a rounded edge rectangle here and just kind of get that outline going so that we have the outside of our sign, and then we can go ahead and paint that in. And again, we're gonna see how it goes, but just let it dry in between coats until it's as white and as you want it, and then we'll outline it at the end, but we'll get it white as we want it here. So on my sample today, I'm going to go ahead and handwrite my letters, but if you purchased a kit from me, I have included some vinyl lettering that I use my Cricut machine. If you have a Silhouette, same thing. My die cutting machine to produce based on the name that you put on your purchase. So if you ordered a kit and you don't have the right name, don't fear, I can mail you an updated one. If you're just purchasing this kit, you feel free to reach out to me, and if you do that, otherwise you can go to any craft store and get vinyl lettering, or you can risk it and do like I'm gonna do today and just freehand it. So okay, so the next piece that we're gonna do is we are going to make some of the wrought iron pieces that are going to come off the sign that connect it to the pole. Okay, so I have my small detail brush and my black paint, and I'm gonna come out kind of like a tree branch comes out of this pole and just bring it around here. Okay, and then once you've got that, you can kind of start thickening it up just a little. Depends on how thick you want it to be, but I like to have it be a little bit more substantial than just one line. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the top here. So again, it's gonna just kind of come out of the pole and just curl up like that to give that sign something to hold on to. There we go. And this is a good time if your pole is drying, then if you want to touch up any of these areas, you can. It's a great way to make sure, because mine wasn't quite as dry as I wanted it to be. I'm just gonna make sure that this is more black than kind of a milky gray. So I'm just gonna add one more little coat here on that paint, and I think we're all set on those curlicues. All right, so we're gonna go back to a bigger brush, and I'm gonna add that next coat on my white, and then we're gonna work on the pole some more. All right, just kind of thicken that, put that next layer on. And there we go. Okay, so continuing with the white, but I'm gonna switch to a much smaller brush, and I'm gonna get some white paint, and I'm just gonna add, I like to turn my canvas for this, while the black is still wet. I'm just gonna add some details on these poles here to make sure that they look three-dimensional. So just kind of working this through. You can just kind of adding some of those details to make it look more three-dimensional. And then up and down the pole, I'm gonna kind of just add little rounded edges to add some lighting and some effect. Again, while that paint is still wet, and you can blend it really well. Okay. And you can go vertically on this side here. And just kind of blend that together so that it looks, there we go. Okay, we are set there. We have dimension on our pole. We have our sign that is drying. I think I'm going to end up putting one more coat there. And now we're going to move on to these ornaments. So we have, on here, we have 6 ornaments. And so we want them to be varied heights. So we're going to draw these vertical lines and we're going to fit 6 of them across from the sign. Okay, so here, demonstrate. So my first one is going to be here, and I just want it to come down and be a little bit shorter. So you want 6 to 7. So depending on how wide you drew your sign plank, you can spread them out evenly. So my next one will go down a little further, but you obviously don't want to go all the way down to the bottom of the canvas because you won't be able to fit the ornaments. So here I can do one hanging from here, and we'll make that one awfully short here. And we'll do another kind of long one here. So that's 4. We'll fit 5 more, or 2 more, geez. 2 more in here. And kind of a medium. All right, so we're gonna let those dry. And we're gonna come back in, and with our red paint, we're gonna use red, green, and blue paint to paint some circles. So if you did 6, then you'll have, you know, 2 of each color. So I'm just gonna paint my circle. And here you can be creative. So if you want, and you guys can decide that you don't want those colors. You can do any colors you want, but you can mix up the shapes. So if you wanted to do, you know, more of a teardrop shape ornament, upside down teardrop, or something like that, you can do all of that stuff here. So I'm going to do my other red one here. All right. So that one's going to be more oval shaped. Okay, and we can do some smaller ones. So we'll do a green. It's a little smaller. Here. And do our other green here, and it'll be in front of this red one. Okay. And again, we're going to let that set up a little bit, and then we'll go back over it with another coat. And we'll get those last 2 sections with some blue. I don't think I want it as dark as that, but I definitely don't want it as light as the background. So I'm going to just kind of mix a softer blue color. And get those painted in. All right, so again, we'll come back and clean those up a little bit, but we can go there. And then we'll head on to our silver paint, which has been sitting over here. And what we're gonna do on each of these is paint just a teeny tiny rectangle. And again, that's why if you don't have silver, don't go out and buy it just for this, because we're just putting it there. If you have gray, this is your time to do that, but we're just gonna, I'll lift it up here. We're just gonna paint these little rectangles that go over the top of the ornaments on each one. And as they dry, we'll add more details to them to add that dimension and fun to the painting. Sound good? Okay, so we're gonna the next step we're gonna start working on is this wreath here. So before we do that, I want to go back through and give my white sign its last coat of paint. So I want to just make sure that we are good and covered so that I can get, it'll be really hard to do this with the wreath going over it. So we'll get that. And you can see now it's really looking good and white. Okay. The other step that we can do is continue to add those ornaments and kind of add that next coat here. So they're good and dark and not transparent. We don't want transparent ornaments unless you want them to be that way, and then they're glass. Okay, and the red looks pretty good, so I'm just gonna stick with the blue here and add another coat onto here. And this one. All right. Okay, so we're gonna find a detail brush. So here is my round detailed brush. The bristles are relatively flexible. And I'm gonna grab some green, just the flat green right now. And what I'm gonna do is, starting here, we're gonna start drawing a circle. So this is the wreath, and the wreath is gonna hang behind the pole here at the top. So we don't wanna paint over the pole because it's gonna sit behind it, but then it's just gonna come down and come around here. Okay, so that's the circle of the wreath. And to add stuff to the wreath, we're just gonna start on both sides, kind of just quick flicks of the paint all the way around. And I'm gonna stay away from the sign just for the moment and let that kind of set up because it's still a little bit of wet. And so again, we're gonna just kind of fan all this out. And we can get in here now. Okay. So we're just gonna keep fanning it out. Until you like the thickness. And then we'll start adding in some of the details. Painting's all about layering on those details. Okay, so there is the beginning of our wreath. So now we're gonna mix a little bit of a lighter green to add some details. And we're also going to mix a little bit of a darker green. Okay. So that we can add those layers of color. And I'm going to get that same brush that I was using with the straight green. And now I can do that same technique here. And add in the lighter color. And then blend in some of the darker color. Starting to look pretty cool. And it's all about those colors that really help you separate. Otherwise, with acrylic paint, it just kind of gets flat when it dries, especially. So you have to add those extra colors onto it. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep adding in this section here. A little bit more just normal green. Okay, so here we have our wreath, and I think we're pretty good. So now we're going to add, oh whoops, we forgot to add the gold. So I'm going to take some of this gold paint and just add some shimmer the same way I did with the greens, just with a little bit smaller brush here so it doesn't overpower it, but we're just going to kind of pepper in some of these golden little bling on in here. And just go until you think you got enough. Oops, got a glop. Just kind of. Okay, so we have gold, and now we're going to add some berries. So berries always come in groups of 3. So I'm just going to put those, and you can add as few or as many as you want. In little groups of 3. There we go. holly berries. Make these a little bigger. I think we got one more spot. Okay, so I think we have enough berries on our wreath. We're gonna add the bow. So to add the bow, I'm gonna use our red paint again and make sure it's dry. So we're gonna add over to the side here, we're just gonna add our circle for the center of the bow. And I'm gonna let that set up for now, and we'll come back to that piece of it. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna mix some stuff for these little mittens that we're gonna have. So I want to make a cranberry color. So I'm gonna pull over some of this red and just a little bit of black and mix it together to get kind of a burgundy or a cranberry. Okay. All right, so we have that color, and while that bow is drying, I'm gonna paint our mittens. So we're gonna have 2 mittens, and they're gonna fall right about here. So they have a circular top, and the thumb and the hand section. We're just gonna paint this outline here. And then the other one is going to hang down here as well. And it's gonna have the thumb on the inside, like that. And we're gonna outline these, so if it gets a little lost there, you can just use your black paint when we're details. So after that, we're gonna have these hanging by a string. So we're gonna get some of our black paint and bring it down from here into there. So it's gonna go behind the mitten, or behind the wreath. Okay, there's that. And we're gonna kind of darken in this section here. There's a little bit of a glare, so I'll look at this. Okay. And then we can use just the littlest bit, like the littlest bit of white on these strings to kind of soften them up a little. Okay, so now we can go back up to the bow that we have, and we're going to do some ovals. Let's paint one oval this way and one oval this way. And then two strings coming down like that. So now we have our bow. Okay, so our mittens are looking pretty good as far as drying. I'll go ahead and hang this up, stand this up here. So I'm going to start working on some of the details for the mittens. Okay, we're in the home stretch here. So I'm going to add some stripes on these mittens. And I like them to be kind of just a lighter version of the cranberry, so I'm going to do it while the paint is still a little bit wet so that it becomes a lighter cranberry color. If you want it to be stark white, then you need to wait until your mittens are completely dry. Okay, so I have my stripes on my mittens, and I'm going to put some stuff on this cuff here. Just kind of go around adding some details there. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing on this bow and just add some highlights so it makes it stand out a little bit more. Just kind of blend those in. Okay, so we have our bow, and then I'm gonna get again that white and do the same thing for our ornaments. Adding those details there. Okay, so now